Okay, thank you guys for your patience. That was something. We don't even need to talk about it. Okay, so where were we? We are in sorry, into action. Okay, fine. So here we go. Right, we did that, we did that, we did that. Okay. We were talking about how we've fitting ourselves of maximum to maximum effectiveness, maximum service. So here are the prerequisites for, and Jules, I'm just going to make you co-host again. Hold on, we're going to do that right now. Okay. Jules, co-host. Okay. There's a word in Hebrew for this called balagan, which basically translates to abject chaos, which is what this is. So we're just gonna roll with it. Okay, so here are the prerequisites that need to be handled before we go and make an amends. Okay, so number one, we have to go to the person in a helpful and forgiving spirit. That's number one. We need to have in our minds that we are doing something that is going to be making ourselves well and better. So in order to do that, we're going to go and make amends to these people. So we can't be going in with any kind of grumbling, any kind of bad attitude, any kind of frustration. It needs to be, we are going with helpfulness and forgiveness. And as I said last month, forgiveness means giving up hope of having had a better past. What does that mean? It means that even if what the other person did was not okay, we accept that it happened and we don't have to fight to have a world in which it didn't happen or it shouldn't have happened. Okay. So that's what we're doing here. We are coming in helpful and forgiving, confessing our former ill feeling and expressing our regret. Okay. So we have to come in with a helpful and forgiving spirit and express our regret. That means that we genuinely regret what we've done. So it's not just saying, "Oh, I'm really sorry I did that," but you're just saying it. Like we are saying why we regret that we did something. For example, let's say I go to somebody who I stole from, right? Let's say okay, I'll give you an example. This is actually an amends I have to make. Okay, so I borrowed a few months ago, I borrowed a tablecloth from my friend and I still have not given it back to her. In fact, I've reused it numerous times and I've seen her and I've mentioned to her, I have your tablecloth, and I haven't given it back. And I need to return it to her. And when I do so, I am going to do so with an amends. Hey, I kept this for way longer than I said, and I regret that I did that because I'm sure that there were times that you wanted to use it and it wasn't there. And I know what that feels like. That's really annoying and inconvenient. So I regret that I inconvenienced you that way. Okay. So one, helpful and forgiving. Two, we express our regret. Now, three is at the bottom of page 77, last paragraph. Under no condition do we criticize such a person or argue. Remember that this is about us. It's not about them. No criticism, no argument. You may have someone come back and tell you all kinds of terrible things about you and say, have a completely different perspective of the situation that you did. Like I said, they're 99%, you're 1%. They may come back and start self-justifying, maybe saying things that are completely off base. Does not matter. They are allowed to say whatever they want to say. They can curse you out if they want to. It's not fun, but it is what it is. Okay. So we are not there to criticize or argue with anyone. In this case, there are two truths. There's the truth that you did something wrong and their truth, which is the perspective of the situation. Their truth is irrelevant to you. All you have to do is walk in, say, this is what I did. I regret it. And that's it. And they can go talk at you for half an hour if they want to. And you give them that space to do that. All right. So remember, it says at the bottom, we are there to sweep off our side of the street, realizing that nothing worthwhile can ever be accomplished until we do so, never trying to tell him what he should do. So we do not tell anyone how to react, what to say, what to do. Okay. His faults are not discussed. This guy could be a world-class jerk. It's not part of the conversation. It does not matter. If our manner is calm, frank, and open, we will be gratified with the result. Okay, so that's that. We need to be calm, frank, and open. What does frank mean? It means being completely clear about what we did. There's no story that, and that's why, by the way, when we write our 4th steps and we write our 8th steps, we have to be economical with words and get right to the point. There's no time to, well, I was thinking at the time that I was really struggling with blah, 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 blah. It's not relevant. I'll give you an example, okay? A few years ago, my father was selling my family's summer home. It was the home that my mother died in. It was the home where one of my children were born in. And he basically had 30 years worth of stuff in the house, and like our childhoods basically in the house. And he was selling the house and closing it and he needed help cleaning it out. So, and which is already a painful thing, because it really was our family's center. And then at the same time, he was bringing his wife, who I've mentioned here before, who is not pleasant, and was basically going to just sit on the couch with her arms crossed and not help. At the time, I had had a miscarriage about a month or so before, and I was really not in a good emotional place. And so I didn't go. I didn't go to help. And I let my sister and brother go and help my dad without me. So my sister this is 5 years ago, okay? It's 2020, 6 years ago. My sister is still mad at me about this. I've made amends though for it. And at the time, I tried to explain, at the time that it happened, I was like, listen, I'm really not in a good emotional space. I just had a miscarriage. I'm really not doing okay. And she didn't want to hear it, and that's fine. That's not an amends. That's just me explaining why I wasn't doing something. And the truth is, maybe I was making the right decision at the time. I have no idea. I don't know. Maybe I was just not wanting to deal with something that I didn't want to deal with. I genuinely, today, maybe one day in the future, I'll have clarity on this. Maybe it's both, who knows? But when I made amends to my sister for that, I basically said, I didn't show up. I did not show up for you when you needed me. I don't even know if I had this conversation with her. Maybe I need to say that to her. I think I did. I don't remember. I have to pray on that. I did not show up when you needed me. Did I have my reasons? Maybe. Not part of this conversation. When this happened, you needed me and I did not show up. I regret that I did that because I know it was very painful. That's it. Because otherwise I could spend 15 minutes telling the story about how hard it was for me, which it was, but that's not what we're doing here. We're not making amends. Both things are true, but only one is part of this conversation. Okay, is that clear? Okay, great. Now, they talk here about owing money, making financial amends. This is something I still work on. It's easy. So thank God I've never stolen amounts of money. But I've borrowed without paying back. And I can justify it in my head. For example, I got a surgery a few years ago and I had a deductible. And so there was money that I still have to pay back. And, but I can justify it by saying, yeah, but I paid for my health insurance. Just because there's a deductible, I basically paid for it. It's not fair. Well, I still owe that money, My father took out loans for me to go to college and was paying them off. And then a few years ago said, well, I don't want to pay off these loans anymore. You're going to take over, which I did not ask for. And it's not fair, but I took over the loan because he asked me to. That's the situation. I could have said no, but obviously I wasn't going to do that. So do I resent having to pay back this loan? It's annoying, and I could totally justify it by saying, well, I was only 18 at the time and I didn't know, and he took out this loan without discussing it with me and blah, blah, blah. I have a loan to pay off. It's that simple. It sucks. I don't like it. I don't like that I'm still paying off my master's degree 18 years after I graduated, but it is what it is. It's a fine, and thank God I set it up where it automatically deducts every month. Do I like it? No, but it's what I have to do. It's a financial responsibility that I have to pay back. And I could sit there sitting in the resentment of, oh, I can't believe my father did this to me and blah, blah. I could, but that loan's still not going to get paid. It's going to keep accruing interest and it's wasting my time because eventually I'm going to have to pay it. So I might as well just say, all right, this sucks, whatever, I got to pay it. The end. Okay, let's see. Now on page 79, the second paragraph, it talks about how it's the second full paragraph. Although these reparations take innumerable forms, there are some general principles which we find guiding. Reminding ourselves that we have decided to go to any lengths to find a spiritual experience, which we talked about already. We ask this, so this means that this is the prayer we say before step 9, that we be given strength and direction to do the right thing, no matter what the personal consequences may be. Okay, so anytime we're making an amends, this is what we ask before we do it, right? Because at the end of the day, we're trying to make the past right. We're trying to make what we did wrong right. Now, some things can never be fully righted, and it says that in this book. There are some amends that we cannot fully right, either because the person's dead or we can't reach out to them, or, you know, there are just some hurts that you can never fully make okay, but we can make them as right as we can. And that's it. That's all we can do. Okay, we talked last month a little bit about amends when other people are involved. So I shared that experience where I was involved in something legal and I couldn't reach out directly to the person because it could implicate my parents. Fine. So, but that's also an easy thing to hide behind, right? Well, someone else is involved and I don't want to bother somebody else. But there is always an excuse not to make an amends, but never a good reason. Okay. And I will repeat that over and over. So it says, and we have to secure people's consent. Now, that doesn't mean it will be convenient for them, but at the end of the day, if you can make that amends, you should. So that means on page 80, before taking the top of the page, before taking drastic action, which might implicate other people, we secure their consent. If you ask them and they say no, case closed. But if you ask them and they say yes, then you got to do it, right? So it says, here are the prerequisites for an amends if someone else is involved. If we have obtained permission, 1. 2, have consulted with others. That means talked with the sponsor or somebody else. 3, ask God to help, right? So we bring prayer in. And 4, the drastic step is indicated, right? So there are a few levels we got to get through in order to know if it's right to make an amends that includes somebody else. First, we ask them. We speak to our sponsor, we ask God, and then we get, because we're working our 10, 11, and 12 every day, at that point, we're starting to get intuition and messages of what we're supposed to do. If we're supposed to do it, we're supposed to do it. That's the prerequisites when other people are involved, okay? Right, so, and sometimes it's better to make the amends. If you have the person's consent and it's all done, it's better to make the amends and deal with the fallout than not make them and go eat again. That's the bottom line. It says it earlier in the book. We accept the spiritual tools laid before us or we die. So you can either go make that amends or die. Up to you. It's your choice. Okay. Now we are on page 81. We're talking about domestic troubles. So here they're dealing with alcoholics, right? And in this case, mostly they're addressing men about how they're mixed up with women in a fashion we wouldn't care to have advertised. So now this obviously is not just for men. We also do not have affairs and do not conduct ourselves right sexually when we're in relationships. So we need to be really clear on this, especially with women, because we can be unfaithful or inappropriate and still be able to justify it. Meaning, let's say let's say you are having an affair with somebody. So obviously stop doing that. Like, not good. And there are guidelines here about how much to reveal based on the situation. And when it comes to these things, it always is based on the situation. Talk to a sponsor, talk to God, and figure it out. There's no hard and fast rule when it comes to making amends for affairs and sexual misconduct, okay? And let's say, for example, you've perpetrated something. Sometimes it's better not to reach out to the person who you perpetrated, either because it will re-trigger them or because there are legal implications for other people. Again, like it's a case-by-case basis. Do not decide this on your own. Please, I beg you, okay? Now, going back to what I was saying before, for women, it's not always about physical sexual affairs. It's also about emotional affairs, getting involved with other people emotionally. I know people who have had like very intense emotional text relationships with people or a coworker And you're not doing anything physical, but there's definitely an intimacy there that is not appropriate. There's also in long-term marriages, I see this with women a lot, withdrawing in the bedroom and not sort of, and like using intimacy as currency. If you do what I want, you can have it. If you don't do what I want, you can't have it. That's still, it might not be an affair, but it's still using sex in a way to control somebody else and in a way that could harm somebody else, right? And we looked at this in our sex inventory in chapter 4. And so we should already know what we've done and be very clear about it and be able to make amends in that regard. Okay? So and like it says in the next paragraph, which you talked about before, if we are sure our wife does not know, should we tell her? Not always, we think. So it's a case by case basis. For example, if you're having a really intense emotional affair, a flirting with a coworker, let's say, does your partner need to know? Depends. Do they already know about it? So then it's something to address, like they're the elephants in the room, they already know. But if they have no idea it's going on, who knows if it's beneficial to tell them? It really depends. Your amends is to stop that relationship and to not repeat the behavior, which we're going to talk about also, right? About not repeating the behavior. Ultimately, on page 82, in the first full paragraph, it says that when it comes to telling the truth to your partner about any kind of sexual misconduct, when you pray about it, you have to keep the other one's happiness uppermost in mind, because you cannot sacrifice your partner to save your own skin. It doesn't work like that. And in the end, you might have to make even more amends for causing more pain. So it's not worth it. And by the way, this is not a question of being honest or dishonest, because if this is a situation, like I said, about like having some sort of intimacy with somebody else that isn't sexual, but definitely emotional, if you're clear with yourself, you're clear with God, you're clear with another person, and you break off the relationship and you call yourself out on it, you're being honest. You're just not hurting the person who it could hurt. But again, this is not a hard and fast rule. It depends on the situation. Please talk to your sponsor. Please talk to people in similar situations, and definitely talk to God and meditate on it. Do not decide this on your own. Okay. Now page 82 and 83. This is one of my favorite parts of the whole book, right? So I'm actually going to read these paragraphs. Let's talk about it. This is the second full paragraph. If we have no such complication, there is plenty we should do at home. Sometimes we hear an alcoholic say that the only thing he needs to do is keep sober. Certainly he must keep sober, for there will be no home if he doesn't. But he is a long way from making good to the wife or parents whom for years he has so shockingly treated. Passing all understanding is the patience mothers and wives have had with alcoholics. Had this not been so, many of us would have had no homes today, or would perhaps be dead. The alcoholic is like a tornado roaring his way through the lives of others. Hearts are broken, sweet relationships are dead, affections have been uprooted, selfish and inconsiderate habits have kept the home in turmoil. We feel a man is unthinking when he says that sobriety is enough. He is like the farmer who came up out of his cyclone cellar to find his home ruined. To his wife, he remarked, "Don't see anything the matter here, Ma. Ain't it grand the wind stopped blowing?" Yes, there is a long period of reconstruction ahead. We must take the lead. A remorseful mumbling that we are sorry won't fill the bill at all. We ought to sit down with the family and frankly analyze the past as we now see it, being very careful not to criticize them. Their defects may be glaring, but the chances are that our own actions are partly responsible. So we clean house with the family, asking each morning in meditation that our Creator show us the way of patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love. Okay, so this is a big deal, this section. It is very easy for us as people with who are compulsive overeaters or who have eating disorders to say that our disease did not affect anybody else. It only affected us because we're the ones who had to deal with the weight issues and the food stuff, and it didn't bother anybody else. You are lying to yourself if you believe that. Okay. Number one, whether you are a partner, a parent, a child, the fact of the matter is it throws off the dynamic of the family to have a sick person in the home. Everybody is dealing with the sick person in their own way, whether they're engaging with them, whether they're deliberately not engaging with them, whether they're ignoring what's going on, whether they're trying to fix it or save it, or just are so afraid of that happening to them that they start making choices. It affects everyone. Okay. Then there's the small choices we make. I know, thank God I got abstinent when I was in my early 20s. Are you leaving? Okay, I love you. What's it called? I got abstinent in my early 20s. So I did not have children until after I was abstinent, but I for sure stole food from my roommates, from my family. Even now I have people in my house who, whether or not they're compulsive overeaters, doesn't matter, but they for sure take food from other people and other people get mad at them. And I know about parents who have eaten their kids' Halloween candy or, had to buy new something to replenish the snacks that they ate. These little things have an effect because even though it's just food, it's not just food. Because if you can't trust this person to respect your things and respect your belongings, it corrodes the relationship. If you have somebody who's constantly in a state of up and down and high and low, and it's very stressful for people to live with that. I personally have someone in my home right now who is dealing with depression. And you better believe it affects everybody in the house. For me personally, it was taking a lot out of me just trying to offer this person resources and them not taking it. And finally, I just burnt out on it. This person's siblings are really angry at him because they're worried and they don't know what to do for him. So they're angry. It affects everyone. If you have someone struggling with addiction, it affects everyone. And if you take the food away, then you just have an unmedicated person, which is worse because then there's nothing to take the edge off. Okay. When I got abstinent, I still lived with my parents. I was doing my master's degree. I was in my early 20s and I was so self-righteous about my abstinence and my food and what I had to do. And that took priority. Oh my God. If I was my mom, I don't know how she didn't slap me at least once a day. It was so obnoxious. Okay. I resented how I had to help in the house and I had to walk the dog and how could they ask me and working the program. And, we don't realize how much the decisions we make based out of ego has a ripple effect. And there's no way that people don't respond to that. There's no way. Even in these little subtleties I have with my husband, sometimes we have conversations and I'll say something and he'll respond to me, not to what I said, but to the intention he felt behind what I was saying, which turns into a fight without talking about the actual thing we're fighting about, which is why are you trying to tell me what to do? Instead, we're fighting about like where I decided to park, when really it's why are you telling me that I need to do it like this? Just let me live my life. So it's not just a question of not eating anymore. It's about changing your behavior. That's what an amends is. An amends is not apologizing for what you've done and then repeating the same behavior. An appropriate amends is recognizing the mistake, owning it, and then not doing it again. And sometimes there's a vacuum where we say, okay, well, I've always done this. What do I do now? If you don't know what to do, don't do anything. Just don't do anything. Like I said last time, you don't have to help everybody. Just don't hurt everybody. Okay? Don't hurt anybody. So for example, if I have a thing where if my husband does something and I'm critical, then next time, if I don't know what to say that's positive, then shut up. Don't say anything. Maybe one day the right words will come. Maybe one day I'll be in such an elevated spiritual space that I'll be able to say these magic words that diffuse every bit of tension in my home. Today, I am far from that, so I just don't say anything. Last night, my husband got in a fight with my boys because he wanted them to go to synagogue and they didn't go and they wanted pizza and blah, 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 blah. We didn't get pizza and then fight about the pizza. And my husband's trying to get me to chime in on this. So I know how I operate and it's not going to go well if I get involved. So you know what I did? Zero things. I did nothing. I just sat there. Now, did that make my husband angry? Yes, because he wanted me to back him up. But I know that it's going to cause more problems, more cooks in the kitchen. I'm not doing it. Instead of me jumping in and saying, well, you should do it like this and he should do this, and I just don't say anything. Is that helpful? I have no idea, but I know I'm not hurting anyone. That's what I know. Okay. So that is the period of reconstruction. We're not going to do it perfectly in the beginning. We're not going to magically change all of our character defects, and our behaviors are not going to change overnight. But the point is, we have to go to these people and say, I recognize what I have been doing wrong. Just hearing that from someone automatically is a win. You know, when somebody comes to me and says, listen, I know I screwed up here, you're already 3/4 of the game. You already won. Because now, even if you make the mistake again, at least I know you're trying. If I'm just, doing the same thing over and over and showing that no remorse for it, then no one's going to trust me. But if I go and say, listen, I know I do this over and over again, and it's something I'm working on, and I might not get it right away, but I promise you, I have the intention of letting go of this behavior, they're going to be more patient. So we have to be very clear about what we've done and go to the people in our lives and our families who deserve that after years of living with us and call ourselves out on it. And also, it's a huge deal because then it allows them to be vulnerable. It allows them to be imperfect, and you can do this process together. We are big, and I don't mean necessarily the 12 steps, but the point is, in my family, we are big on apologizing, very big on apologizing. My kids know how to apologize and how to take ownership of things because I apologize to them all the time. They know how to do that. I'm very clear on, oh, this is something I'm working on right now. Oh, mom's working on that. Okay. Like it becomes part of the culture of the family. And so when you make mistakes or you screw up, it's not this huge threatening thing that explodes. We've already had a conversation about it. Oh, I know I did that thing again. I'm really sorry. I'm working on it. I promise. We have to, as long as we're consciously making the effort and we're doing our best and we're being honest about our side of the street, it makes relationships so much easier to navigate. And it says here, right? On top paragraph 83, we sit down with the family and frankly analyze the past as we now see it, being very careful not to criticize them, right? And these are people, by the way, if you're living with human people, there are going to be things about them that are really, really annoying. That's just how it is. That's what it's like to live with humans and to be a human. Okay. Their defects may be glaring. And I'll tell you something, I could list right off the top of my head at least 10 of my husband's defects, probably 20. If you time me, I could probably list 100 in like a minute, but it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant because the truth is a lot of those defects may be in response to my trying to control him or my fear or my this. I have to only be responsible for me and my reactions and my responses, right? So in order to do that, once I make my amends with the family, once I sit down with them and I say, listen, first of all, I've been living in addiction for a really long time. I know I've taken your stuff. I know I've taken family resources to try and lose weight or to go to this doctor or, and I know I've been inconsistent and I know I haven't been reliable. And I really regret that because I know it's hard to live with someone like that. And I know it's hard to love someone like that because when you love someone, you want them to be well and healthy, and it's sad and scary when they're not. So I'm sorry for you having to live with that kind of stress and worry about me. I am working really hard now to let go of those habits and let go of those old behaviors. And I'm going to do my best from here on out. That's it. That simple. That's what they want to hear. That's what people want to hear. And in order for me to continue doing that, I ask each morning, this is the daily action I take in order to be a baseline tolerable person to live with. Ask each morning in meditation that our Creator show us the way of patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love. This is the baseline. This is how I'm supposed to conduct myself with people, especially with my family. Do I do it perfectly? Absolutely not. But if I'm not sure what to do, this is where I need to go back to. Patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love. Patience, we allow people to take their time, go through their process. One of my daughters is the slowest cook and eater I have ever met in my life. Okay. I have even just getting ready in the morning. She's like my husband. I have to wake her up solid 45 minutes before I would wake up everybody else because she potchki, she takes this, she goes this. I know who I'm operating with. So instead of waking her like with everybody else and freaking out because she's not on time, I say, okay, I know this one needs to get up earlier and give her a rundown of what's happening tomorrow and she'll be ready. I need to be patient. Nothing, barring a hostage situation, God forbid, there is no situation that needs to be resolved within 24 hours. There's nothing that pressing that I can't wait 15 minutes and send somebody a text and say, listen, I'm running late. I'm sorry. Okay. But in general, I need to be patient with the people around me. My brain moves really fast. So it's very hard for me when people don't keep up. And this is something I have to work on, patience. Okay. Tolerance. Tolerance isn't just, oh, okay, fine, I'm tolerating you. It's, and I don't like to use the word allow either, because that means I'm in a position to give permission, which I'm not. It's, I am going to stand here and not get involved with you being you, because that's not my job. You were given the assignment of being you. I was not given the assignment of being your boss. I was given the assignment of being me. So I'm going to do me over here and you're going to do you over there. And I'm going to let you do you how you do you. You're probably not going to do you like I do me, but that's okay. You're going to do you and I'm going to do me. And if we have to do something together, then we're going to find a way that works well for both of us. That's tolerance. Okay. Kindliness. Instead of telling my kids, what the hell is wrong with you? Why are you incapable of taking a dish from the dining room table and taking it to the sink and washing it like a human person? It's, hey, do you mind taking care of that dish? Thanks so much. Just sometimes it's just the way I speak to my kids, you know? That doesn't mean I don't give them to them sometimes because they deserve it. But in general, they know I'm like the safe person, okay? And love means, love's a tricky one, but the concept I've heard of love is unconditional giving and acceptance, right? So, for example, this is actually something that I need to work on. I was watching an episode of Queer Eye last night. I don't know if you guys watched that. It's a great show. But they were working with a gentleman who's trying to reconnect with his wife. They've been married for 39 years. There's a distance. And he sort of does his thing in the garage. She does her thing in the kitchen, and they're sort of living parallel lives. And the wife wants to spend time with him and do things with him. And he said, yeah, but I'm just not into the things she wants to be into. And they said to him, sometimes you have to make a little bit of an effort and meet her in the middle somewhere so that she feels like you're in it with her. That's love. For example, if I'm cooking dinner, I can cook dinner for my husband too, not just my kids. I can go out of my way to do something for him, pick up something that he needs, give him a compliment. It's giving without conditions, because the more I give, the more I love. It's this weird, I'm in the misconception that the more I get, the more I love. That's not true. The more I give, the more I love. That's why parents are obsessed with their children, by the way, because we're giving and giving and giving and giving to them on a constant basis, which builds our love for them. And that, as adults, children have this great way of just being very free with their love. As we grow up, especially as addicts, we learn to shut ourselves down and withhold and be afraid to be vulnerable. But actually, that giving away is what opens us up. And it's a practice. It's part of that reconstruction of being willing to give without expecting or needing anything in return. And it's hard. It's very hard, especially when we've been disappointed by these particular people, but it has to start with us. It says that it has to start with us. We must take the lead, right? If we want to see a change, it has to begin with us. What time is it? Okay, so it's 11. And although we lost a little bit of a chunk, I am going to stop there. Thanks, guys.